January 1979. The most powerful king in the Middle East packed his bags and fled his own country, never to return. Millions of Iranians poured into the streets celebrating. An elderly cleric flew in from exile in Paris and was greeted by the largest crowd in human history. Within 37 days, a monarchy that had ruled for 2,500 years collapsed completely. A modern, westernized nation transformed overnight into an Islamic Republic. How did this happen? Who made it happen? And what did it mean for ordinary Iranians? This is the story of the Iranian Revolution, one of the most dramatic political transformations of the 20th century. To understand the revolution, we must first understand the Shah. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi became king of Iran in 1941 at just 21 years old. He inherited the throne from his father during World War II when British and Soviet forces occupied Iran. He was young, inexperienced, and initially weak, but with American support, he transformed into one of the most powerful rulers in the Middle East. He modernized Iran rapidly. He built highways, universities, and hospitals. He gave women the right to vote. He pushed Iran toward a Western lifestyle. To outsiders, Iran looked like a model of Middle Eastern progress. But beneath the surface, something was deeply, dangerously wrong. In 1951, something remarkable happened. Iran's democratically elected prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, nationalized Iran's oil industry. He wanted Iran's oil wealth to benefit Iranian people, not British corporations. Britain and America were furious. In 1953, the CIA and British intelligence launched Operation Ajax, a secret coup to remove Mossadegh from power. Hired mobs flooded the streets. The military turned against Mossadegh. He was arrested and imprisoned. The Shah, who had briefly fled the country in fear, returned triumphantly. Backed by American power, he ruled without democratic opposition. Iranians never forgot this betrayal. The seeds of revolution were planted in 1953, 26 years before it erupted. After the coup, the Shah created SAVAK, his brutal secret police force. Trained by the CIA and Israeli intelligence, SAVAK became one of the most feared secret police organizations in the world. They monitored every Iranian citizen. They arrested anyone who criticized the Shah. They used torture routinely and systematically. Electric shocks, sleep deprivation, psychological terror. Thousands were imprisoned. Hundreds were executed. Nobody felt safe. You couldn't speak against the government to your own neighbor because your neighbor might be a SAVAK informant. This atmosphere of terror created a pressure cooker of resentment that built silently for decades. When it finally exploded in 1979, nothing could stop it. In 1963, the Shah launched what he called the White Revolution, a series of reforms designed to modernize Iran rapidly and satisfy American pressure for democratization. Land reforms broke up traditional estates. Women gained voting rights. Literacy programs expanded education. Industries were modernized. On paper, it looked impressive, but the implementation was deeply flawed. Traditional landowners lost power and became enemies. Religious leaders like Ayatollah Khomeini publicly denounced the reforms as un-Islamic and as American interference. Khomeini was arrested and eventually exiled. The rural poor didn't benefit as promised. Inequality actually increased. The modernization created winners and losers. The losers would remember, and they outnumbered the winners dramatically. The 1970s oil boom made Iran incredibly wealthy on paper. Oil prices quadrupled after 1973, money flooded into Iran. The Shah embarked on massive modernization projects. He purchased billions of dollars of American weapons. He dreamed of making Iran the dominant power in the Middle East. Tehran became a glittering modern city with luxury hotels, nightclubs, and Western consumerism. But the wealth was distributed shockingly unequally. While elites in Tehran lived lavishly, rural Iranians remained desperately poor. Millions migrated from villages to cities seeking opportunity. Instead, they found crowded slums and unemployment. They arrived religious and traditional and found a capital that felt foreign and decadent. Their resentment was building to a breaking point. While the Shah celebrated Iran's modernization, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini was building a revolution from exile. First in Iraq, then in Paris, Khomeini was spreading his message through a revolutionary technology, the cassette tape. His sermons condemning the Shah were recorded, smuggled into Iran, copied thousands of times, and passed hand to hand across the country. In mosques, in homes, in bazaars, Iranians listened to this elderly cleric's voice calling for revolution. The mosque network provided infrastructure that SAVAK couldn't easily penetrate. Religious leaders communicated across Iran without telephone surveillance. Khomeini built a revolutionary network hiding in plain sight inside Iran's religious institutions. The revolution had a leader, a message, and a delivery system. In January 1978, a government newspaper published an article attacking Khomeini personally. It backfired catastrophically. Religious students in Khomeini took to the streets in protest. Security forces opened fire. Several protesters were killed. In Shia tradition, the dead are mourned 40 days after death. 40 days later, larger protests erupted in their memory. Security forces killed more protesters. 40 days later, even larger protests. This 40-day protest cycle created unstoppable momentum. Each crackdown created more martyrs. Each martyrdom created more protesters. The Shah was trapped in a cycle he couldn't break. By late 1978, millions were marching in the streets. The revolution had become too large for any government to suppress. Woo! On September 8, 1978, a day that became known as Black Friday, government forces opened fire on a massive crowd of protesters gathered in Jaleh Square in Tehran. Estimates of the dead range from dozens to hundreds. The exact number remains disputed, but the political impact was absolute and immediate. Any remaining possibility of compromise between the Shah and the opposition died on Black Friday. Moderate opposition figures who had hoped for reform within the system now joined the revolutionary movement. International media coverage of the massacre shocked the world. Jimmy Carter's administration, which had called Iran an island of stability just months earlier, was forced to reassess its support for the increasingly desperate Shah. By late 1978, the Shah's position was collapsing from every direction. His military was losing the will to shoot fellow Iranians. His American backers were sending contradictory signals, unsure whether to support him or abandon him. His own health was failing. He had been secretly battling cancer for years. The oil workers went on strike, cutting off Iran's economic lifeline. The bazaar merchants closed their shops. Even the professionals who had benefited most from modernization joined the protests. The Shah tried appointing reform governments. Nothing worked. The revolution had gone beyond demands for reform. The people wanted the Shah gone. On January 16, 1979, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi left Iran forever. On February 1, 1979, Ayatollah Khomeini returned to Iran after 15 years in exile. The scenes were extraordinary. An estimated 5 million people lined the streets of Tehran to welcome him. It was described as the largest crowd ever assembled in human history at that time. A journalist on the plane asked Khomeini how he felt returning to Iran after so many years. Khomeini replied with a single word: nothing. The answer shocked many people. But it revealed something about the man. He was not returning as a triumphant exile. He was returning as a revolutionary with unfinished business. Within 10 days, the last remnants of the Shah's government collapsed completely. The Islamic Republic had begun. In October 1979, the Shah was admitted to the U.S. for cancer treatment. In Iran, this was seen as an outrage. Iranian students stormed the American embassy in Tehran and took 66 American diplomats hostage. They demanded the Shah be returned to Iran for trial. America refused. The hostage crisis lasted 444 days. It dominated American politics completely. President Carter's failed rescue attempt, Operation Eagle Claw, ended in disaster when American helicopters crashed in the Iranian desert. The crisis destroyed Carter's presidency and helped elect Ronald Reagan. The hostages were finally released on January 20, 1981, the exact moment Reagan was sworn into office. The timing was no coincidence to many observers. For ordinary Iranians, the revolution brought immediate and dramatic changes. Women were required to wear the hijab in public. Western music was banned from radio and television. Alcohol was prohibited completely. Mixed-gender socializing became restricted. The legal system was transformed to Islamic law. Many professionals, artists, and intellectuals who had thrived under the Shah fled the country. Iran experienced a massive brain drain that damaged its economy and intellectual life for decades. But for the religiously devout poor who had felt culturally alienated by the Shah's westernization, the revolution felt like liberation. The revolution meant completely different things to different Iranians depending entirely on who they were and what they believed. The new Islamic Republic barely had time to establish itself before facing an existential threat. In September 1980, Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein, encouraged by America and Arab states nervous about the revolution spreading, invaded Iran. The Iran-Iraq War lasted 8 brutal years. Over 1 million people died on both sides. Iran was attacked with chemical weapons. Cities were bombed. Entire generations of young men were sent to the front. But the war also had an unexpected effect. It united Iranians behind the new government. The external threat suppressed internal dissent. By the time the war ended in 1988, the Islamic Republic was firmly established, battle-hardened, and unshakable in its foundations. The 1979 Iranian Revolution remains one of the most consequential events of the 20th century. It ended a monarchy. It created a theocracy. It shattered American influence in the Middle East. It transformed Iran's relationship with the entire world. It inspired Islamic movements across the globe. Its effects are still felt in every Middle Eastern conflict today. Whether you see Khomeini as a liberator or a tyrant depends entirely on your perspective and your experience. But what nobody can deny is that the Iranian Revolution changed everything. Iran changed. The Middle East changed. The world changed. And 45 years later, that change is still unfolding. This is Historiopedia. History that feels real.